This time I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Mr. Terry Jenkins to have the invocation for us. Thanks for this opportunity to meet tonight, serve you and the citizens of our town. Watch over tonight, every day. Serve us, home and abroad. We are here to serve you, Lord, and we ask that we do your will. Nothing more, nothing less, and nothing else. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor, we have proclamations. Can you come down for, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me. I knew what we had next. I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
All right, first, Chief Waring.
Fine looking bunch of dogs. Ladies.
Whereas firefighters of the town of Somerville play an essential role in the protection of lives and property in our local community by responding to fires, medical emergencies, hazardous material spills, and all other calls for help. And whereas firefighters are committed to helping ensure the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our community by reducing the occurrence of fires and medical emergencies through prevention and education. And whereas as an occupation, firefighting is full of danger, requiring fortitude, physical strength, quick thinking, and careful training. And whereas firefighters promote fire safety, education, and prevention, proactively halting emergency threats. And whereas International Firefighter Appreciation Day is marked each year on May 4th to recognize the services and sacrifices firefighters make throughout the world. And whereas the town of Somerville is grateful to have a fire department of men and women dedicated to the residents, businesses, and visitors of our great community. Now therefore does Ricky Waring, Mayor of the town of Somerville, hereby proclaim May 12th, 2022 as Firefighter Appreciation Day in the town of Somerville and urge all citizens to participate wholeheartedly in its observance.
I've got this one. All right, you all ready? All right, whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, one of the oldest among public servants, is a time-honored and vital part of local government that exists throughout the world. And whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk provides the professional link between citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, county, and international professional organizations. Now therefore I, Ricky Waring, as mayor of the town of Somerville, do hereby proclaim the week of May 1st through May 7th, 2022 as Municipal Clerks Week, and extend my appreciation to all professional municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Done at Somerville, South Carolina, this 12th day of May, 2022.
Council members and me. Bill might have something to say about it other than congratulations. I hope that Bess does an excellent job for us, keeping up for us. I know does a good job for me. Beth, I don't know how you do it. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
It's like herding cats.
Whereas the International Economic Development Council is the largest professional economic development organization dedicated to serving economic developers, providing leadership and excellence in economic development for communities, members, and partners. And whereas economic developers promote economic well-being and quality of life for their communities by creating, retaining, and expanding jobs that facilitate growth, enhance wealth, and provide a stable tax base. And whereas economic developers stimulate and incubate entrepreneurism in order to help establish the next generation of new business, which is the hallmark of the American economy. And whereas economic developers attract and retain high-quality jobs, develop vibrant communities, and improve the quality of life in their regions. And whereas the mayor and members of town council recognize and extend their sincerest appreciation to our regional partners in the work of economic development, including Berkeley County Economic Development, Charleston County Economic Development, Dorchester County Economic Development, the Charleston Regional Development Alliance, the Berkeley Charleston Dorchester Council of Governments, the Greater Somerville Dorchester County Chamber of Commerce, the Charleston Metro Chamber, and Somerville Dream. Now therefore does Ricky Waring, mayor of the town of Somerville, hereby proclaim May 9th through 13th as Economic Development Week in the town of Somerville, and remind individuals of the importance of economic development activity to the town's strong quality of life. Chief Wright? Last one.
Come on up and shoot this.
Whereas there are more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Somerville Police Department. And whereas it is important that people throughout our country know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police departments, and that members of our law enforcement agencies recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the nation's police departments have grown to be modern and scientific law enforcement bodies, which unceasingly provide a vital public service. And whereas it is fitting and proper that we express our gratitude for the dedicated service and courageous deeds of law enforcement officers and for the contributions they have made to the security and well-being of all of our people. Now therefore does Ricky Waring, mayor of the town of Somerville, hereby proclaim May 11th through May 17th, 2022 as National Police Week in the town of Somerville and urge all citizens to participate in its observance.
Have somebody we can be proud of. And I think our whole council especially. We're very proud of you. It's a great job of keeping our town safe. Yeah, we continue to keep your forces. It's tight right now. Just keep doing your job. As long as you keep the job like you're doing now, you can go to sleep at night, you can feel safe. Whatever you do, we will try to get you. That's what we're working on now. Congratulations. Thank you so much for passing. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, approval of minutes of the previous meetings.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve items A, B, C, and D at one time.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, motion that we accept A, B, C, D, and A, B, C, D of the minutes of the previous meetings. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by raising your hand. Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carried. Okay, public comments for items at this meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I do not have anyone signed up for public comment for items on the May 12th agenda.
What is she saying?
No one has
No
signed
public
up.
comments? No public comments concerning this meeting. Okay, no petitions, pending bills and resolutions.
Second and final reading of an ordinance to annex Dorchester County TMS number 14506060004, located off of Paradise Point and totaling approximately 1.584 acres, currently zone CG General Commercial in Dorchester County and will be zone GB General Business upon annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the second and final reading of this resolution.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carried.
Second and final reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 12, Article 2 of the ordinances of the town of Somerville by amending Section 12-31 to add vibrations, amending Section 12-32 by adding vibrations, amending Section 12-33 to delete any reference to scientific measurement of decibel level, amending Section 12-34(3) to add vibrations which affect the environment, Section 12-36 to make it mandatory the officer exercise his or her judgment and that any factor may be weighed, add vibration to subsections 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and adding new subsections 7, 8, 9, 10, amending Section 12-37 by adding vibration, amending Section 12-39 by adding vibration, deleting Section 12-40 in its entirety, and amending Section 12-41 by adding vibration.
Motion to approve. Give
Second.
second final reading.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I might, it might be worth it for someone to explain to the public what we're doing with this big section B. We bought the fire department some noise regulators that would measure decibels, determine how noisy the sound was made by a motorcycle or car. motorcycle or a car or whatever, one of the neighbor complaining about another neighbor's noise. So we got the police department something that they can measure it with, measure the decibel, a little machine. And it seems like it didn't work out because we were having some problems being able to measure the problem. So we went back to the old way of doing it. The officer shows up and most people listen to the officer and seem to calm down. So we're able to get back to the old way of doing the law enforcement that works. So that's all this is.
Any other discussion?
Well, if anybody wants to measure it, there is an app for that.
Okay, if not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
First reading of an ordinance to adopt an operating budget for the town of Somerville, South Carolina for the fiscal period beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023.
Mr. Mayor, I move to amend the budget to include a millage increase of 6.5 mils, which will increase the current millage rate from 59.5 mils to 66 mils.
I'll second that.
As a point of parliamentary procedure, nobody has moved first reading of the budget. You can't amend something before it's properly before council.
I'll make a motion. We approve the budget.
Second.
I'll make a motion. I move to amend the budget to include a millage increase of 6.5 mils, which will increase the current millage rate from 59.5 mils to 66 mils.
I'll second.
Councilman Jenkins, do you have that amendment in writing as required by state statute section 5-7-270? Or are you just talking to us out loud here?
Explain what you mean. I'll have the corporate counsel explain to me what you mean.
Well, I'm asking you whether your amendment's in writing as required by state law. If not, I move to table the amendment.
What's your opinion on that?
Bear with me just a minute, Mr. Mayor. Is that what you do?
5-7-270, form and procedures for introducing and passing ordinances. Every proposed ordinance shall be introduced in writing and in the form required for final adoption. By practice, we've always amended ordinances in writing. If y'all want to change it now because you're so anxious to tax people more, I'm sure Mr. Parker will go along with you for political expedience purposes.
I think Mr. McIntosh is partially right. I don't think you could have had first reading of the budget without a written ordinance. But at the same time, council has the power to amend an ordinance as presented. So when it comes up for second reading, it would be in the format as amended. So I think you can have first reading on the ordinance as amended. Take you forever and forever.
So is your opinion that the ordinance has to be in writing, but the amendments to ordinances do not have to be in writing? I mean, I've been doing this about 10 or 11 years. I've never seen an ordinance amended verbally before.
I think we have. We can certainly do a writing.
It could be more transparent. Put something in a packet that goes out to the media and people who follow council that says no tax increase. You're not even willing to put your tax increase in writing, Mr. Jenkins.
You have the motion written out. Yes.
I'll need it, a copy of it back.
There's a motion to table.
Who made the motion to table? You made the motion to table, Bill?
I did.
You got a second? No second. Excuse me, I'm hard of hearing. I didn't hear that, Bill. I'm sorry. And now we got a motion to amend the budget ordinance. We got a second on that? Yeah.
If I may, if you would wait, just go on to something else and come back to that. So the amendment can be in writing past each council member.
Okay, we'll come back to that and move on to the next thing.
Get tricky.
First reading of an ordinance to amend and renumber Town Ordinance, Chapter 24, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, Article 2, Picketing, Demonstrations, and Parades, Division 1, Sections 24-41, 24-42, 24-43, renumbering 24-44 to 24-45, adding new section 24-44, renumbering 24-4 to 24-48, and adding new 24-45, adding new 24-46, adding new 24-47, Division 2 by renaming Division 2, and amending sections 24-71, 72, 73, 74, 76, and 77.
I'll make a motion. We do that.
Second.
Second,
Mr. Mayor, if I might, here we go. We got a lot of verbiage in this. What is, Lisa, what is this designed to do?
Councilman Brown, I believe that this is to amend the time requirements that it would take to apply for a special event permit. Is that correct, GW?
That's what the parameters from. Do the guidelines. That's, for use of facility. I decided to research the issue and found that timelines that we had to respond were possibly unconstitutional. It moved us to shorten that time frame with some changes in the definitions that we were using. I think this would better stand a constitutional challenge if somebody would be denied the right to parade, picket, demonstrate, or otherwise have an assembly or gathering.
Thank you, sir.
What is the change in the timeline?
We went from 60 days down to 7 days. Overnight for if 15 people wanted to picket from the town hall, they would get be described as a notice. Be able to do it the next day.
And what goes from 60 days to 7?
Yes. But in past practice, I don't think they were taking 60 days for doing that. The way you read the ordinance, it could be construed that way. And all that would have to happen is a group applied for permit to picket or to demonstrate, and were denied for whatever reason. They could raise constitutional
challenge that our ordinance was unconstitutional was applied to them. As I mentioned to you, I thought that this would be proactive rather than
Well, I think the change in the ordinance here is a good move because I think it makes our service to the people in the town work a little bit better if somebody has a concern and they want to demonstrate or whatever. I think 60 days is an extremely long time, so I think we needed to make the change.
Make sure that Chief Wright and Amy could live with those times.
Mr. Mayor, there's a motion on the floor and it's been seconded.
We got a motion,
Yes, sir, and it's been seconded.
we got a motion second. All in favor, signify by raising the right hand, voting aye. All opposed? Ayes carry.
Are we ready to go back to 8A or move on?
She's asking GW if he's ready yet. Mayor, if you go back to 8A, there was a motion and a second to amend the budget. That's what's on the floor.
So that's what Terry's got to do.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, he's already made a motion and it's been seconded.
Who seconded? I did.
Yes, it was Mr. Jackson. So,
So
any
what you gonna say?
discussion?
Huh?
So you just need to call for any discussion.
I need a second to Terry's motion.
Mr. Jackson seconded it.
Okay, so where we at now? We got a vote?
Ask for discussion and then.
Any discussion on Mr. Jenkins' motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, so something here I would like to read out loud. Since increase in taxes disproportionately affect the lower income people, while I'm happy that we are increasing pay for our employees with this budget, and especially with our police, fire, and lower level employees who are past due for a raise, I am concerned about the lower income residents who live in my district and other parts of town who are losing their homes and other real estate to the ever increasing burden of property taxes at the delinquent tax sale or being forced to sell for less than market value. The dilution of minority residents in Germantown, Cesspools Lot, Brownsville, and Robinwood notably amount to unintentional gentrification and the loss of identity of people who have lived here in Somerville many years before Somerville became the 7th largest city in the state. Again, I agree with the need for the higher wages to be more competitive and to increase employee retention. But increase in taxes by millage increase is something that I have a difficult time swallowing. Hopefully, we will learn to be more frugal with the taxpayers' money in the future and place stopgap measures in place to avoid the need for additional tax increases in the future. The town must learn to live within its budget. And if the millage is not adequate to meet the needs of the residents, then the town must review what entities are creating the shortfalls and make adjustments beyond the lowly homeowners. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I've joined Mr. Brown in being extremely concerned about the action that it appears this council is going to take tonight, which is to raise everyone's property taxes. I'm opposed to it on the merits. I've always been opposed to it on the merits, but what's far more troubling is the lack of transparency and the procedure by which we find ourselves to in this place. We had a budget retreat. We had a second budget meeting. Those two, the budgets that were presented, and we had a packet go out to the media and the members of the public yesterday with the ordinance, the budget ordinance in it. 3 times we have been presented for the budget retreat, the special called meeting that had some changes in the budget ordinance, and the notice that went out to the public yesterday. All 3 of those budget proposals, budget ordinances spent essentially the same amount of money. All 3 of those ordinances or proposals had the raises that Mr. Brown and I both are thankful for. All 3 of those budgets were balanced. Nowhere was a proposal to raise taxes. So if you're a member of the public or member of the media and you get the packet, the agenda, and you get the budget ordinance yesterday, or if you came to the budget retreat or you watched it online, you saw town of Somerville is balancing a budget. They're spending this amount of money, they're giving people raises, having a balanced budget without a tax increase. But here we are, and we have at the last minute verbal amendment, and just writing this, just copying what Councilman Jenkins said when he moved to amend the budget. That's not a written amendment. A written amendment to an ordinance strikes through language. It refers to the part of the ordinance where millage is, and it strikes through the current wording and replaces it with new wording. That's how you amend an ordinance. That's how we've always amended an ordinance. But see, nobody wanted to do that. They wanted to wait until the last minute and hope nobody was paying attention and get a real quick verbal amendment to ordinance, and maybe nobody will notice that it's jacking your property taxes up during a time of 8% inflation. And it's one of the least transparent and most dishonest things I've seen a councilman do since I've been on council for 11 years. And I don't believe that this verbal amendment, just making a copy of this, complies with either our own town ordinances or state law on how you amend an ordinance. So, separate from what you think about tax increases, some people love them, I don't know. But from a procedural standpoint, this is a absolute low moment of Somerville Town Council.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd just like to add on to that. Even though I'm not totally against increasing the millage slightly, I just think increasing it by 6.5 is a little more than we should at this time. What's happening in the environment right now financially for so many homeowners. I prefer to vote on this budget as is without adding this on. This is my, I mean, if we're going to vote on this, I'm going to have to say no to it unless we go back and amend once again to just vote on the budget separately.
Bill, Mr. McIntosh told me my first year or so on council, I was a pretty good leader. Well, he just finished telling me in the last month or 2, I was the poorest leader he ever met. I've had a good, close relationship with Lisa and Rhonda, and going over the money and our budget and what we're faced with in Somerville is dangerous. We're just not in a good place. I've been working with Somerville since 1970. Now, back then, I was a kid. But I had the privilege of working with Mayor Berlin Myers. And he taught me so much that was just unbelievable. And that's probably maybe was about the time Bill was born. And, you know, I won't ever forget what he told me. One thing was, don't raise taxes, but don't ever cut them. Well, Bill cut taxes 2 years in a row, or a year and a half, and then a year again very recently. And he's got this idea that if you cut taxes, you'll make money. And that may be true, because I'm not a smart guy. You know, I got a high school education from Somerville High School. He's got one from some big college. But I got my education from Berlin G. Myers. And his education was in government, running this town. And this town is in trouble financially. And that ain't no BS. That's the absolute truth. And if we don't raise taxes this year, we'll be in big trouble next year. That's no question about it. He doesn't believe that, but he don't know it. Now, I do know it, because I'm relying on Lisa and our CPA, who is a smart lady. And she's letting us know right where we are financially. We are in the worst financial position I have ever known us to be in my almost 50 years involved in this town. So if we don't do something this year, guess what? We will be in worse shape next year. Not according to Mr. McIntosh, but that's according to Ricky Waring, who got his education from Berlin Myers, and is also listening to people we hire that know way more than our attorney sitting at the end of this table. He's not a financial guy. He's a lawyer. I'm not a financial guy. I'm a fire chief. But I've been listening to people who are financial people for the last since 1970. And this town has run great since 1970. Charlie Cazell, I see you sitting there in the back of the room. You worked with me for a lot of years with the town. You took over CPW. You've done a wonderful job with it. You know, you all got a great financial situation over there that I've learned in the last few months. But you've been allowed to run that thing with a great board. We are sitting here listening to the wrong man, and we're going to crash financially if we don't listen to what we're saying. A $6.5 million tax increase. Are we going to make our citizens upset? You're damn right we are. But a week or so, 5, you're damn right we are if we get it passed. But I'm not scared to vote for that pass or that $6 million tax increase. I'm 100% for it, because I know what's going to happen if we don't do it. We're going to be in trouble. And next year will be worse. If we get it passed, because Bill hadn't come over here and met with these people like I have. He's got his own thing going over there in his own mind, because he's smart, too smart for his britches. He doesn't know what I know, because I've been right here with him every day, and I trust him, by the way, and he doesn't. We hired him. You got to trust him. Belinda knows. She's sitting back there too. We got to make things happen. And to make things happen, you got to do the right thing. And if you upset your citizens, you upset them. If they get upset enough to put you out of office, fine. Let them put you out of office, but while you're in office, do your job. And do your job right. Do your job. Give your people what they need to do their job. And if it takes a 6.5 mil increase, raise them. Sure, your citizens are going to suffer. Sure, Aaron's citizens are going to suffer more than the guy that makes $150,000 a year. But they live in Somerville. They got to be part of Somerville. They got to be part of giving up something. That's just the way it works. That's the way America works. This is America. I mean, we all got to give our part. And the poor person's got to give his part just like the rich person does. I'm sorry, that's just the way it works. I don't like it. But, you know, every time there's a tax increase, there's a scare increase. Oh, Lord, I ain't gonna be able to buy my gas. I ain't gonna be able to do this. Well, everybody thinks that way. Even the rich person thinks that way. I'm gonna get a little bit more taken from me. But government, don't compare us with the big government now. I'm talking about our little city government here. Our little city government here, picking up your garbage. I found out this morning, we may have one whole subdivision, Lisa remind me this tomorrow. We may have as much as one whole subdivision that's not even paying their garbage fee. We know we got at least 10 houses in there that's not. Just because one house got missed. One house got missed and one nice lady called and said she got missed. And before we got off the phone with her, and she got mad with one of our employees and called me. And by the time we checked it out, in 4 years, she ain't never paid a garbage fee. It never got put on the tax book. So we checked it out a little bit further. Her next door neighbor never paid her garbage fee. Well, so I told Lisa, I said, not this Lisa, I told Lisa, I said, let's do a random check of the subdivision. So she's doing the record as a random check of the subdivision and has found out all kind of people has never been put on the books. So, you know, we got all kind of problems facing us. And do we need a tax increase? Yes, we do. And do we need an audit check of everything every dollar we're supposed to be getting in? Yes, we do, Mr. McIntosh. Are you involved in that? No. But I'm here every day, and I'm here getting the complaints every day. Do I just tell that employee, go check it out? No, I go check it out. I went to that lady's house. Her garbage can was on the street. They didn't pick it up. You know why? Because they checked it and they didn't have it. Carolina Waste didn't have it in their system to pick that can up. But I went out there. I'm your mayor. I went out there. Did Public Works go out there? No, they didn't go out there. They went back and forth with Lisa on the telephone. She called her complaining on Monday. Today's Thursday. I got the call this morning from the lady. I didn't talk to the lady. I said, what's your address? She gave me address. I went straight out there. Now, Bill's right. Our staff should have gone out there. But I went out there. I went to Tillman Millhouse's house this morning. I asked Russ to check that out last week. Russ told me to embarrass you. I asked him to take out stormwater guy and go out and check Tillman's house. Did he go? No. I took the stormwater guy out there this morning. The mayor. We got problems. Not knocking at anybody, but we got problems. Do we need a tax increase? Yes. Do we need to make our employees more accessible to what we need to do to make the town more fundable and more accessible to where we're not wasting money? Yes, we do. Are we guilty? You damn right. That's not Russ's fault. That's not Lisa's fault. That's not anybody's fault but us and town council. But do we need a tax increase? Yes, we do. We do. We need a tax increase because we've got so far behind. We didn't get far behind over a year. We didn't get far behind over 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. We got far behind over the last 10 years. That's where we are. And we can get caught up. We can raise taxes this year. Next year, we probably be fine. The next year, we can do what Bill wants to do. We might be able to cut taxes if we're smart. If we learn from our mistakes, because we have made mistakes. I've only been mayor 2.5 years, but when I came to work here and Berlin Myers called me on the phone and said, Ricky, I need 2 or 3 firemen. You all need to get on the garbage truck and go pick up garbage today. You know what we did? We got on the garbage truck and went and picked up garbage. We didn't say that wasn't our job. If we did that today, everybody walk off the job. Well, let them walk and go hire some more people. That's how I feel. But let them know how much you appreciate that. Because back then the town let us know how much they appreciated that. Anyway, that's all I got to say. You know, a 6.5 mil tax increase is a drop in the bucket for where we are right now and how far behind we are right now. It's not something like what Bill's talking about. I mean, it's just what's in your heart, how much you love your town, how much you want your town to survive, and what you want us, where you want us to be. I mean, this is a great town. Somerville's a great town, and that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one comment, Mr. McIntosh, I think was incredibly accurate on one of the things that he said, and that was that people did see online that we were presenting a balanced budget, but I don't think that tells the whole story of what they saw online. Anyone who was paying attention to how we were balancing our budget would recognize that we were using $2.8 million of ARP funds to balance our budget. That means we have a $2.8 million budget shortfall. It additionally means that we spent no money on capital expenditures, virtually no money. Police cars, just so people are aware of what they do, we've had an unwritten policy of trying to replace 1/5 of our police cars, about 20 a year. That's $1.2 million. We're not doing that this year. It's not in the budget. That's a $4 million shortfall, if you count that. And there are many other capital items that we did not put in the budget. So we're somewhere, by my math, which I think is, math doesn't lie, it is somewhere between $4.5 and $5 million short in our budget. What a 6.5 mil tax increase does is generate $1.8 million in revenue. What does that allow us to do? We're still $1 million short. We own the budget. We're still going to fund $1 million of the budget with ARP funds. We're not going to make those capital expenditures. But what it does allow us to do is to have the remainder of those ARP funds to help us next year and the year after that, while we try to work towards recovery of our fund balance, looking across all aspects of our budget as to where we can save money, looking across the employee base that we have to find out, does everybody working here need to be working here? And so as we look for those things, we'll get back closer to what I think Councilman McIntosh would like us to be doing. And I don't disagree with that. The problem is our shortfall is too great, and it would be negligent, in my opinion, on our part if we do not deal with a tax increase to get our budget back into some type of balance where we can build fund balance to the point that it needs to be, help our tax base grow and increase so that we under the best of circumstances, are able to give back taxes. Under the medium circumstances, we're able to stay where we are and don't have to increase taxes. So, I mean, I just think it's worthwhile to understand where we truly are with the numbers that we have, despite the fact that we have a balanced budget. It is not a balanced budget. It's a balanced budget with a $2.8 million shortfall that we funded with the federal government. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may be heard a second and final time under our ordinance, I think we can all speak twice on the same matter. I do talk to our senior administrators, senior managers regularly. I've met with our finance director, who I think does a tremendous job for us. But I'm not aware of the things that some members of council, and I consider you, Mr. Mayor, a member of council. I don't know if there's two sets of information out there, but I doubt it, because I have a lot of confidence in our finance director. I sat down with her for over an hour a week or two ago. The disadvantage that all 7 of us are in is we don't have an audit. Our most recent audit is for the 2020 year. And here we are passing a 2023 budget. But our finance director has looked very closely at what she believes the 2021 audit will look like. I was surprised and pleasantly when we discussed it, but I mean, we're expecting a significant surplus in the 2021 audited numbers, a surplus in the millions of dollars. I mean, this is not me. This is the same people that the mayor says that we should listen to, and I am listening to them. But I am concerned that we passed a budget last year without the 2020 budget, and we're passing a budget this year without the 2021 or 2022 budget. But when you look at, and I've provided this to all of council, when you look at the last 6 audited budgets, 2015 to 2020, it is obvious that we do not have a revenue problem in the town of Somerville. We have a spending problem in the town of Somerville. In that period between 2015 and 2020, according to the census, the estimates, the town of Somerville grew 10%. It grew from 49,283 people to 54,556 people, an increase of 10.7%. We're a growing town. Our needs are going to expand in a growing town. We're going to have to spend more money because we're a growing town. I accept that reality. But in that same period where population growth was 10%, our spending on governmental activities, according to our own audits, went up 47.5%. In 2015, total spending on government activities was $33.5 million. In 2020, it was $49.5 million. We're going to spend, we do not have a revenue problem. We during that same period, while overall government spending went up 47%, it's probably not surprising that spending on public safety went up 47% as well, because public safety is the heart and soul of the town of Somerville government. Half of our employees, it should be half of our spending, work in fire and police, and that's really what we exist for. But when you get outside of public safety, roads and drainage, people also think is important, obviously, but that only increased 44%. That increased a little bit less than average. But when you look at administration, our administrative budget in 5 years went up 108%. Our engineering budget went up 100%, doubled in 5 years. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. If council is not comfortable doing what we've done before, which is plugging in fund balance, not the ARP funds. ARP funds happen to be among the funds that are in fund balance. But if we're not comfortable doing what we've done in years past, which is plugging in fund balance numbers and trusting our finance staff to be very conservative in revenue projections and hope that we actually don't have to spend that fund balance. If we're not comfortable with that, then we've added 15, 16 million dollars in additional government spending just since 2015. We can find 1.8 million dollars to cut and not put it on the backs of our citizens.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I do agree with you in transparency and it not being put out with a raise. I may have been part of that because I wasn't in touch with anybody. I buried my dad Tuesday, so I wasn't really in with this. I do think that should have gone out. But at the same time, we have balanced our budget with capital funds for about 3 years. I only voted one time for a tax increase. It was 1.5 mils for the police force. Back before we increased by 47%, we didn't buy police cars. They were breaking down on the road. And the decision was made, we had to catch up. And while Berlin G. Myers did great for the town, Berlin G. Myers did not want to spend a nickel. So the town is behind. We need a police station. We have our police and our fire crammed in that little station over there on 9th Street. There's no space. Since that, hey, you were almost a boy when that was built. Since then, how many more police officers and firemen do we have? And they're still packing into there. They literally have offices and closets. We need to build a police station. Myself, I'd like to get rid of the court, but I don't have the vote. We need to get a courthouse. And we need to renovate that fire station, police station, so that the fire can have a headquarters. And we can have people to run emergencies and communicate with each other when these times come. Part of this, in my mind, the increase is we haven't done that. We lived on the cheap, and I look at it like a house. You know what? You don't have to fix the roof. You don't have to put new floors in. It will fall down around you in time. We don't have to build up our police force. We can just complain when we get shot. And that is happening much more now than it was. And Chief, you can correct me if something's changed, but last month you were manned 100%, and this month you're 13 short. Is that correct? Okay. So our police force is looking here at council tonight to say, am I going to get a raise or am I going to leave? And that hits the low income community. If we can't even hire them, we may want them, but if we can't, what we are doing is training firemen and policemen. We don't pay them, so they go somewhere else. So now we lost our training money. And paying a permanent fee with the money in savings or with federal money that's a one-time thing is also short change in the bank. That's like taking the money you had to fix the roof and using it to water the lawn. At some point, people love this town. More people are moving from up north and all that love nice places to live. If anybody has a problem with us raising taxes, walk in the police station and tell me you feel like this is a professional police force and we have one of the best, we just give them the worst. And I can't do that. And I know Bill, this has always been his stance, but you know, at times I'm here tonight. I was supposed to be out of town. This vote is important to me enough. I wanted to be here in person so that when I vote for the increase, I can take responsibility for it because I care about this community, not getting reelected. I care about the community and we need to upgrade it. And that costs money. and there's an 8% inflation. We pay that same inflation and we run police cars and fire trucks. Imagine what our fuel bill is. So I think we should use the cash we have to do the things that we need to do right now and raise the taxes so we can have some security in the future moving forward. And we need to build that police station and I guess a court, but but that's why I'm going to vote for it. We need it. We need people like Linda's street clean. So, so
Have you watched those policemen drive those cars? Bad out of hell?
well, hopefully they were on the way to my house.
No, that's to the station.
Okay. That's a different topic. So, okay, I'm done.
Let me say, get my little second bite on the apple, Mr. Mayor. Bob mentioned a very important thing. It's one of the reasons that Somerville is such an attractive place is because one of the things they mention when they tell you why they moved to Somerville is because of low taxes. So if we start moving taxes up, then the town won't be as attractive as it was in the past. So you have to, that's something that you have to understand. I met a guy from New Jersey and he was at the pantry up there at the corner of Cedar Street and Highway 78. And I was pumping gas. And he didn't know how to pump gas because he's from New Jersey. You can't pump your gas in New Jersey. So he said, how do you pump this gas? He says, we don't have to pump it in New Jersey. So I showed him how to pump the gas. So he started talking. He says, I just moved down here from New Jersey. So I bought this big old house. He said, it was so cheap. And he said, the property tax is unbelievably low. You want to have that guy moving here if we continue to raise taxes. Now, I think that everybody who's talked about this issue has made some good points. And it certainly, it occurs to me that the people I'm trying to help, the lower income people, some of those people work here for the town and they need to raise. Bill makes some good assessments about what's happened to the town over the years. Sure, things have changed and the town has grown. But at the same time, I think we don't have the stopgap measures in place as the months and the years grow on so that we can make sure that we are spending the money the way it should be spent, that we're not spending money that shouldn't be spent. And so that's one of the things I've talked with Rhonda about that I would like to see. I think something else that we could do when we hire a chief financial officer, we could put a bonus at the end of his or her term. And if they are able to run a forensic audit on the books before they leave, we give them the bonus. So I think we've got to tighten up. I do think that we're spending more money than we should, but I think I agree with Terry. We are right now, and we've got to do something for the future. But I think there's some things that we can do because as we move on and the town grows, we're going to have more problems and more things we've got to do to keep the people happy in the town. And certainly we need to be sure of what we're doing with the money that they're giving us.
Mayor, maybe one more time. I was just thinking about engineering's budget going up so much. I'm sure we all lived in the town where we had dirt roads, gravel roads, where we had no way to get anywhere. And everybody was complaining about it. We built Bear Island Road. We're doing Maple Street. I'm working on the Berlin G. Myers, trying to get phase 3 through. If I was working on my house, I would figure doing some major things like that might raise my budget a little bit. Because it does take extra engineers. It does take extra time. It does take different professional people. We've raised our building code people. Part of engineering. Look how many more buildings we got. The 2 guys we had before wouldn't make it. So a lot of things are changing. And I just feel like I want to stand up for the town and vote for it. If there's 4 votes, you can vote no, and it's going to go anyway. So you get both cards. But I can see some reasons why engineering has gone up that much. We added an economic development person who has done a fine job. That's another person. And they have brought businesses into town and investments, and even worked a lot with the small businesses that are already here. Guy on Old Charlie Road with a little boat shop. Michael's out there trying to move him into town. He's in the county and find him a place he can expand. Costs money. I'm done, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
Yes, sir.
slide
Russ.
over here, sorry. I am the most junior member on this council. And I will tell you, I love the town of Somerville, and I've always held it in the highest regard. My perception prior to coming here was that things were organized and well-run. So thank you to the staff who fights hard every single day, even though what I perceive from us was a lack of vision and a lack of clear direction. It would appear to me that we have been managing the decline of a great town, similar to the Cuthbert Community Center, which is now being shut down because of deferred maintenance. When we talk about stewardship, stewardship is more than just cutting costs, cutting positions. It's about making tough decisions, like Councilman Brown said, about prioritizing where our money goes. I think the mayor highlighted Somerville CPW earlier as a well-run business. They are. Look at the facility. Look at their books. They are well-run. And I think that comes from a clear direction from their policymakers. So I would love to work alongside each of you to help give our staff, number one, the funding to get us out of this hole. Number two, the encouragement and support that they deserve to be the best stewards of these funds. And then from that point forward, we can monitor them with a trusting relationship and make adjustments as we see fit, as long as it fits within our vision. And we have to cast that. Otherwise, there's nothing more inefficient than people being pulled in 7 different directions every single day. So I will vote for this because I do not believe Somerville deserves to continue to decline.
And one more time, Mr. Mayor, I've heard each and every one of you this evening, and I really like this discussion and hearing everyone's views. After listening and thinking more about this, I was going to suggest, that we just have an increase of maybe 5 mills. But I am going to go ahead and vote for it. I think that not only our employees, especially our public safety, we're going to need this for them, but it's also for our citizens. A few years back, we did lower the mills, I think 2 years in a row. So making this increase at this time makes up for that lowering that we did. I hate to raise the taxes, but I understand that this is what we need, not only for our budget, but for our citizens overall.
Anything else, y'all? Okay, all in favor of Terry's motion, signify by raising their hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Mr. Mayor, now you'll have to call for a motion to actually have a motion on it.
What?
We have to go back to the first reading of the ordinance as amended.
Where is that? Go ahead, do that for me. Well, because I'm lost.
Okay, so now that the amendment has passed, we'll go back to first reading of the ordinance to adopt the operating budget for the town of Somerville for the fiscal period beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30, 2023, as amended.
Motion to approve.
Already got a motion in a second.
Yeah, we just have.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Discussion.
We got a second?
There's already a motion in a second. It's time for a call for discussion.
Okay. No, discussion's already taken place.
No, Mr. Mayor, the discussion was on the amendment.
What, Bill?
The discussion was on the amendment.
No discussion.
No, there's no call for discussion on the motion as amended.
Okay.
Sitting
Discussion
hard.
on the motion as amended.
Mr. Mayor, if I may be recognized, I just want to say something in response. I think to Councilman Touchberry, I don't disagree with some of what Councilman Touchberry has said. I do agree that there's been a lack of vision from council. I think my first 4 years on council, there was a lot of vision and things changed dramatically for this body. And if you weren't here, you will not understand what happened. Having said that, a couple of things that I just sort of take exception to. Staff is not the stewards of this money. We are. We're elected by the citizens in a council form of government. We're not only the legislative branch, we're the executive branch. And we're the stewards of this money. And we're in this hole financially to the extent we're in a hole because we don't know, because we don't have a budget. But to the extent we're in a hole largely because of mismanagement by former staff members. Should we have kept a closer rein on them? Yes. I was a voice in the wilderness saying, why don't we have the 2020 budget? Why are we voting on the 2022? Why don't we have the 2020 audit? Why are we voting on the 2022 budget without a 2020 audit? And I was just like banging my head into the wall. But we got the budget that we're currently under. And if you go back and watch the meeting online from May of last year, we were presented something by a former administrator and a former finance director that just wasn't a budget. They were just made up numbers and they were out of balance by $5 million. When it was brought up, they disappeared for 15 or 20 minutes and came back with brand new numbers. To the extent we're in a financial bind, because of mismanagement of people that were supposed to be working in the best interest of the town and were not. And do we share some of that blame? Sure. But the reality is we don't know whether we're in a bind because the last audit we have is from 2020. Our new finance director, who I have a lot of confidence in, believes that we will run a surplus in the 2021 budget of several $1 million, more than this tax increase. But instead of waiting on that audit, we're just in a frenzy to raise taxes in the middle of 8% inflation. I don't understand it. But if our finance director is correct, and we run a surplus for 2021 and several $1 million, and our past experience, as Councilman Gordon Schmidt has said, I think we cut taxes 3 years in a row. And each time we cut taxes, the amount of property tax revenue that came in not only exceeded our budget projections, it exceeded the previous year when the taxes were higher, because tax cuts spur economic activity, which causes people to pay more actual dollars. And that's what we spend. That's what our staff spends. They spend actual dollars, not millage rates. So what I expect will happen is we'll get an audit in a month or two that will show a significant multi-million-dollar surplus. We'll say, golly, why did we raise taxes when we didn't have to? And then what's going to happen after these taxes come into place? We're going to run an even bigger surplus on this 2023 budget. And what we're going to do with that surplus, I know what we're not going to do. We're not going to refund it to taxpayers because that's never happened in the history of government. We'll find somewhere to spend it. We're just, we hid this tax increase into the last minute. It wasn't in the budget packet that went out yesterday. It wasn't ever discussed in 2 budget meetings. And we have no idea whether it's necessary, but I do know this. As much as we want to be given 2% and 3% pay increases, and as much as we want to pay people more, this tax increase, I came here today to vote for the budget. The budget that was in my packet yesterday, I was in favor of. Adding this $1.8 million tax increase does not increase spending by a penny, does not pay one employee more money. It just shifts how we fund it, and we put it on the burden of our taxpayers. So I'm opposed. I came here to vote for the budget. I'm now voting against it.
I just like to say, if we have a few $1 million extra, maybe 10 or 20, we get a court and we got a fire station to build. It lowers the bond. I mean,
We tripled impact fees to pay for municipal buildings. We are going to build a police station. I'm with you, Councilman Jackson. I hope we don't build a new courthouse. I think the court is just fine where it is. And we both talked about getting rid of the court, and the people said, no, that won't work, sending people to 3 different counties, magistrates courts. But there's no reason to build a new courthouse. That's $3 million we don't have to spend. We will build a new police station, but it will be financed the way it's supposed to be financed, not by annual budget appropriations, but by the municipal impact fees, which this body just tripled. We tripled impact fees. We raised fees to go to participate in flag football or basketball at the Rawlings Edwards Center. We're increasing fees to go in front of the BZA or to get your property subdivided, or to petition to have your property rezoned. It's on the I think it's on agenda tonight that we're going to, at some point, we're apparently going to try to add money to people's water bills. Bill, hold it. Wait a minute. We're in a frenzy. We're in a spending and taxing frenzy, Mr. Mayor.
I got to try to catch up with you because you're losing me, really. And I want to understand you. I do. Seriously.
You do not want to understand me.
I do want to understand you. But you talk so damn much, I can't keep up with you. If we get the money you talking about, we getting.
Our finance director is talking about running a multi-million-dollar surplus in 2021, but we didn't wait for an audit to raise taxes.
And you say we're not going, we just going to spend that money.
We're not giving it back, are we?
Well, I don't know. We ain't got it. Well, that's what I'm getting ready to ask you. When we get that money, if I'm still around, why wouldn't we do a rollback? I'm not against that at all. I can promise you that. As long as Ricky Waring's sitting in this seat, I'm not against that at all.
we've done it 3 times.
That's not what you did when you reduced the taxes.
We reduced taxes and revenues went up, and we ran a surplus when we reduced taxes.
But not, you just said millions of dollars. Millions of dollars.
I'm talking about the 2021 audit that we don't have yet.
I want to talk about 21. I want to talk about 22. If we get there.
When will we get that audit, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, well, I don't know, Bill. I'm like you on that. You know, I agree with you on that.
Be the mayor.
But I agree with you. You know, I would agree to roll back then. I would.
Okay. I'll hold you to it.
Yeah. Excuse me.
I think we've got a motion and a second.
What's the motion? I didn't hear it. I'm sorry, Terry.
To approve first reading of an ordinance as amended.
Oh, okay.
We've got a
Okay.
motion in a second.
All right. All in favor of this motion, signify by raising your right hand, voting yes.
All right.
Yes.
Opposed likewise. Okay, motion carried.
First reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 22 Water Management, flood damage prevention and stormwater management, section 22-124, stormwater control, item F, minimum runoff control requirements, subsection 2. And what's on the screen has the new wording since the Public Works and Committee on Water Supply meeting on Monday, where they would like to add the 50% in, or change it to 50%.
I'll make a motion that we approve this.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Well, this is not what was before us previously, so I guess it's been amended by staff. The council hasn't amended it.
Was that the direction of the committee, wasn't it?
I thought so. We're seeing it forward.
I believe we requested that 50% to be in there, not just in the design standards, but in the language as well, so they didn't have to cross-reference. It removed the ambiguity, whatever that word is.
I remember the discussion and I certainly wanted to remove the ambiguity. I just, typically it's council's job to amend ordinances, not staff, and it's typically amendments are done in writing, but since we're not doing away with that, apparently I would move to verbally amend this to strike 50% and change it to 75%.
Since first reading, I'll make a motion second on that.
Okay, Bob's got a motion. Somebody got a second?
And that was my motion, Mr. Jackson seconded.
Oh, it's good.
And
Motion
I'd like to
made.
explain my motion because what we talked about in committee was that we really wanted for property owners to not have to hire an engineer, a lobbyist, a lawyer, anyone to try to understand what our ordinances say. And what was put before us just basically said that the town engineer would do whatever was in the stormwater manual. And apparently the stormwater manual said it should be 50% rate of impervious instead of what our existing ordinance actually says, which is 100% rate of that it was 100% rate of perviousness. And that's my problem is this, what's before us does not show the actual amendment. Typically what we do is we show the ordinance as written and strike through words that are being eliminated and showing the new words. The old ordinance, as I recall, said that if you use porous paving technologies, including pervious concrete and pavers, that was considered at a 100% rate of perviousness. In other words, it didn't count at all. And I think staff rightly said, you know, even these porous technologies, these pervious paving technologies, they're not actually 100% pervious. My motion to amend, which again, I don't think any of this thing is proper the way you amend an ordinance, but I'm just joining in, that if you put it at 75%, I think most of our neighbors, our citizens, our taxpayers will, if they're spending extra money to use this porous paving technology or other pervious technologies, that they will accept that 75% rate. But what staff said to us in the committee meeting was, well, we're just going to set it at 50%. And if they're not happy with 50%, they can go hire an engineer and fight us. And that just strikes me as arrogant. It just strikes me as why, if somebody is spending more money to use this technology to try to use the right kind of materials to minimize stormwater runoff, that we're going to tell them, well, just arbitrarily, we think you only get a 50% credit. But if you don't agree, go out and spend money on your own engineer and we'll have a battle of the engineers. I think if we set it at 75%, our citizens will accept 75%. Some consulting engineers might not get an extra gig or two, but our citizens will know exactly what the rules are and they'll be satisfied with them.
Mr. Councilman, just a question, because you noted that the word imperviousness and pervious were different.
Yes.
Are you saying you wanted a 75% rate of imperviousness or perviousness?
Perviousness, which I don't understand
make
why it,
sure.
I don't know why it now says imperviousness, because this is why it's an improper amendment. It doesn't show the existing ordinance with the existing language being struck through. But my motion is a 75% rate of perviousness. I actually only recognize that it had somehow been changed from perviousness to imperviousness sitting here.
So if I can ask a question, so you want more concrete?
No, as it is now, if you are approaching if you're approaching your limit under our existing ordinance, and you want to use these porous or pervious technologies, which we want to encourage people to do that, you get a credit of 100%. What this would do would change that credit from 100% to 75%. What staff has suggested is moving it to 50%. And if you think that you actually have not increased the amount of pervious materials on your property by that much, then you got to go out and hire your own engineer and have a fight with our engineer. And I'm just trying to avoid that. I think our property owners, our citizens, will appreciate that even though they're going the extra mile and they're spending extra money for this porous and pervious technology, that nothing's 100% pervious.
I think for clarity, I don't think this is, there was a discussion with staff, but I think this is the committee recommendation to change it from 100 to 50, not simply staff recommending that. So that's my recollection of how we are where we are.
Well, I mean, I can give you the verbatim. We did not know what was in the stormwater manual, and that was kind of my point. Neither does anybody else. So why have the ordinance say that it's going to be determined by the town engineer? Why not say what's in the stormwater manual? So we did ask, a committee asked staff to not hide the ball and not give the town engineer discretion, but to set an amount that anybody flipping through the code of ordinances would understand. Somehow or another, and we were told it said 50%. Somehow or another, it went from pervious to impervious, and that's just not the way you amend an ordinance. My amendment changes it from 50% to 75% for a rate of perviousness. And I think what that will do is it will be broadly accepted by the public. If we go to 50% and we take the position that if you believe or even know that you should get a much bigger credit than 50%, that you've got to go spend money and prove yourself and have a battle of the engineers. I think 75% is still a reduction of the 100% that we have now. And I think the public will accept it, and they won't have to go out and hire a consulting engineer to defend themselves.
And I misunderstood what it was saying. I thought you wanted 75% of pervious material. And I'm all for that.
If you spend money on pervious material, instead of it being counted 100% pervious, it would be counted as 75% pervious. That's what the effect of my amendment, if it's passed. I'm fine with keeping it 100%, but I'm thinking that 75% would be accepted by the public. They wouldn't have to go out and hire a consulting engineer if they think that 50% is dramatically low.
From a customer service standpoint, I agree with you. We don't want to have a regular homeowner having to request that. I wonder if it's more prudent to send it back to committee, because
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
I move we send it back to committee, because I would love to have staff present us with the different technologies that we see frequently within the town and what their pervious levels really are. so we can make an informed decision. I agree with you. We do need to reduce it because flooding is a real issue. And I think we need to do this right one time so we don't have to talk about it again.
Perfect. Second your motion.
Motion on the floor.
Good.
Second here.
Good for me. Where we at now?
Got a motion on the floor and a second. So we need to call
Okay,
for any
motion,
discussion.
yeah, motion. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion carried.
First reading of an ordinance to authorize the mayor or town administrator to execute an economic development incentive agreement for Project Wood in the town of Somerville.
I make a motion that we approve that.
Motion
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion?
Was the incentive agreement in our packet?
No discussion? All in favor, say, raise your right hand, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried.
Resolution amending the town of Somerville's organizational chart.
I'll make a motion, we approve that.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded on the organizational chart.
Mr. Mayor, I would just point out that and I believe this is what Mr. Jackson is, I just want some clarity because there was some confusion. The resolution that went out in the chart, in the packet, did not have an effective date. The chart itself said effective July 1, 2022, which is our new budget year. So at my request, Madam Clerk sent out an amended resolution that makes it clear that it's now effective July 6, 2022. We're essentially eliminating two positions. I think both positions are still on the payroll. One goes off the payroll next month. I think the other one goes off the payroll July 5th. So this would be effective July 6, 2022. Is that your motion?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly like.
Second on that?
Second.
Second, okay. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Yeah, I just saw it.
Motion carried.
An ordinance to authorize the mayor or town administrator to execute a quitclaim deed to North Maple MBM LLC property described in the ordinance. And there's the map.
I'll make a motion that we approve that.
Second.
Second. Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
This is the quitclaim.
Say what?
This is the quitclaim that we discussed previously. I mean, is there money being exchanged for it? Is that, we have that amount? What is the amount?
Okay, no other discussion. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand, vote yes.
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 Opposed likewise. Motion carried.
Discussion and direction on preparation of a preliminary redistricting plan.
Mr. Mayor, I can talk about this. Council received the benchmark report from RFA back in February, and then last month we had a public hearing. And the purpose of the public hearing was to determine the criteria to use to create a preliminary plan. So really just looking to see if there is any direction for staff on a next step.
Well, I think the last time we talked about it, we were talking about the League of Women Voters submitting a map of the districts, and then the NAACP was invited to do one. And we never set a date as to when we would meet. I know, Bill, you had some thoughts on this. Did we set a date?
Well, I would say this, I understand that this is something that has to be done before the 2023 municipal elections, in which filing would be in August. You can file for a seat that doesn't exist, for a district that doesn't exist. So we do have some time. I wouldn't want to take the whole year or the whole 15 months. And so I certainly understand why maybe staff would think, well, we need to get some direction. I would just say this in general about redistricting, reapportionment. That's not a reflection on anybody up on this dais. It's not a reflection of any staff members. This is an innately political process. It is a nakedly political process. If I was an employee of the town of Somerville, I would run from this process. But so be careful what you ask for if you're asking for direction. I think that we are in the past, and I know they have a new acronym now, but in the past we've used the Budget Control Board, whatever they're called now. The guru of drawing lines that helped us 10 years ago was Bobby Bowers, a wonderful person who unfortunately is now deceased. There's a new person with that entity, Budget and Control Board, that now takes the lead in drawing districts. I presume that they will be drawing some districts based on some criteria that we as a council provide them, but it's up to us to provide it. If I was staff, I'd stay out of it. And I mean that I'd say that to the staff of any government anywhere. There's no good can come to you as a staff member getting involved in reapportionment. But like Mr. Brown said, I would expect that both the NAACP and League of Women Voters will also be drawing maps, and we'll have at least 3 maps to choose from at the appropriate time.
I think we need somebody from the state and an open invitation to anybody else in the beginning. And it needs to be council. Because these little lines
Yeah,
just.
I think
go
we need
crazy.
to let them come in and at least get us started.
Mhm.
Because if you take the districts now, the way they are now, and you just dump it in 3 councilmen's laps, it'll be a nightmare.
Well, I don't even
I know
mean
some of the
free.
requirements, Steve. The first requirement is the town is now over 50,000. You got 6 council members. So you're talking, when you draw the lines, whatever map is accepted, it has to try to evenly distribute the residents amongst those 6 council members, right? So you're probably talking close to 8,000 or slightly over 8,000 residents per council member. Currently, as it is right now, we've got one district that's got over 11,000, and we've got other districts just got around 6,000. So that's not equitable. The second concern is, from what I understand, what the legislature is concerned about is that we have a district that we can show some favoritism to having minority representation on the council. And so that's something else too that we have to consider. So want to make sure that whichever way you decide, that it's fairly done so that the residents of Somerville feel that they're getting the proper representation. They've got enough, the council members who can serve that particular number of people in one district. And so but those are the 2 main considerations.
I do think there's some very basic things that all 7 of us, just looking at the numbers, are going to agree on. Ms. Wallace, if this helps, I mean, there's no question that the district that Mr. Jenkins represents and the district that I represent have grown much faster than the rest of the town, and that both of those districts are going to have to lose 1,000 or more residents. The district that Mr. Brown represents, and it is, it grew at the slowest rate and is going to have the most additional members of the public, electors they're called, and that's going to be the thorniest thing that this body does, because even though the pre-clearance provisions of the Voting Rights Act have been eliminated, the Voting Rights Act itself hasn't. So I think we'll want the input of experts, whether they're from the Budget and Control Board or whatever they call themselves now, the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, that as we take voters away from the district that that I represent, and we take voters out of the district that Councilman Jenkins represent, then we place voters in, or citizens in the district that Mr. Brown represents, that we avoid, if at all possible, what the Voting Rights, Civil Rights Division lawyers call retrograde, that we're not either purposefully or unwittingly diluting minority voting strength as we add voters to the district that Councilman Brown represents. I mean, I think we all sit up here right now and can give that direction, because that's just what has to happen under the Constitution. But the actual, does the line go here, the line go there? If I'm a staff member, I want zero to do with that. That's just my,
Well, please understand, that was
Unsolicited
never my intent to
Okay.
have any input on the drawing of the
Okay.
districts.
And I agree. And Lisa and Aaron and I worked on the last one. And we spent 3 months trying to get a minority district. We put use creek or anything we could, and we could not do it. So that is even going to be more interesting this time.
Also, the demographic of the town has changed to, when I first got elected, we had enclaves of minorities like Brownsville and places like that. People have moved around depending on their ability to move to different places. So it's,
well, that's exactly right. The percentage of minority population in the town has not actually decreased. People just not decreased significantly. People just don't live segregated like they did in the bad old days, which makes, if you're trying to preserve minority voting strength, it makes it much trickier. But the last lines were drawn by Mr. Bowers, who is now deceased, and he was very creative in creating a district that I think that Mr. Brown represents, that I think was about 48% minority voting strength. Whether that can be done again, who knows? But I don't think any of us up here have the ability to do that.
Does everybody go along with discussion in the direction of doing a preliminary redistricting plan? I think it's a great idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to B then. Consideration of agreement with News 2 live stream with camera on the building. BW, can you give us a little statement on that, what Channel 2 wants to do?
Yes, Mr. President, they want to put a webcam on what's sitting right out here on top of above the HR department. And it would photograph Hutchinson Square. The size of the camera is about the size that you see on the east side of, the west side of Old Town Hall. I think I sent everybody a copy of the proposed agreement. If you don't have it, I'll be glad to pass one up to you.
so let me ask you this. Since we got a tight budget,
I'm sorry.
since we've got a tight budget, are they going to pay us?
No.
Oh, my
What the town is receiving from it is they're gonna say, they'll make money off of it.
Mm,
But the town gets the publicity from, if they end up a newscast, we're showing you downtown Somerville on Thursday, courtesy of Hoover Motors, something to that effect. And then they'll pan the area down on Hutchinson Square, or perhaps doing Flower Town Festival, any other event that's on the sense of something.
so if they video document something in Somerville that does not glorify Somerville, do we get to filter what they're going to publicize?
Well, I put a clause in the contract that if anytime we felt that a sponsorship was disparaging the image of Somerville, we had the right to terminate the agreement.
Like they say in Germany, Geschnit, Geschnit, German. I took German in college. But anyway, yeah, well, I'm just concerned about that. I mean, we don't want them to publish what, what's interesting to the news, maybe something that we don't want necessarily published.
I don't have a problem with it.
I feel like I have had problems with too many other things to worry about this.
We need to vote on that, y'all.
Sure, you can find something.
Yeah.
Can't possibly.
We're just talking about.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agreement with Channel 2.
Okay,
I'll second.
Second?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
second.
Oh. Any discussion? All in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, vote yes.
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 Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carried.
Consideration of proposed franchise fee for water and sewer utilities.
Before we vote on this, I talked with Mr. Kaler this afternoon, with, CPW. And he would like for us to get with all the people that we're talking about putting this fee on and talk with them together. And I don't know, that's not a bad idea, where everybody's, on board. And, if they're not on board, I don't know what we'll do, but at least talk to them and get together. Like, we've decided that if we do it, and let's just say it's $2.50, a agency, then it'll be $2.50 an agency. But rather than us try to say, okay, Somerville CPW is $2.50 to you, and Dorchester County is $2.50 to you, and blah, 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 that we try to get, that Chris get each manager together and let us meet together and let them know what it's going to be.
Mr. Mayor, I think we've taxed enough, and therefore I'll move to table consideration of a proposed franchise fee for water and sewer utilities.
What'd you say, Bill? I can't.
I'm
hear you.
moving to table consideration of this matter.
And I'll second that so we can discuss further.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor on the table. Any discussion?
Quick clarification for the rookie up here. Once an item is tabled, what is the next way to get that discussion back up open? Was the next procedural process?
Actually, the best way to do it is just postpone it until a date certain. It can be brought back up at any time, generally at the next regular meeting or next special meeting.
Mr. Parker, would you agree with me that to levy a tax, which is what a franchise fee is, a tax on different utilities that will of course pass it on to our citizens, that's got to be in the form of an ordinance?
Yes,
Well, then what is this, an ordinance?
no,
Then I move to table consideration of a proposed franchise fee for water and sewer utilities. If someone wants to draft an ordinance for us to look at, that's how the process starts. And the proposed ordinance would be in the packet for the media and the members of the public to see and read and understand what's going on. So my motion is to table consideration of this.
Well, you're always handicapped when you're not a lawyer sitting up here, but
If you do it for 20 years, you ought to know how it works.
as I said, you're always at a handicap if you're not a lawyer sitting up here. I'm trying to understand, because I don't think I'm disagreeing with what anybody's saying up here. If we were to move to instruct the town attorney to implement an ordinance for a franchise fee or an intergovernmental agreement for water and sewer providers equal to 5% of annual gross revenue, it doesn't mean we're implementing a fee. It means we're preparing in case that is what we want to do, is my understanding of what we would be trying to do. Am I misunderstanding?
Any member of council can propose an ordinance. We don't need to put something on an agenda to talk about it first, or to instruct corporation council or anybody else to do anything. If you want to prepare an ordinance to increase or to develop a new franchise fee of 5% on all of our water and sewer customers in the town of Somerville, have at it. You're on a roll.
I just wanted to say that, Mr. Mayor, your comments about communication and collaboration with the partners, I think is very important. And the tabling seems to give that some time where more discussion can happen. And I just wanted to say that I think that's a good idea for us to collaborate with our partners, for sure.
And Mr.
Well,
Mayor, I agree with
let
that
me-
also. Exactly what you said, that since they reached out and they said they'd like to talk and everything a little bit more, that's what I would like to see also.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, what does table mean, Bill?
It means it's moot now because we've ended up discussing this, but this is not even, the point of council meetings is to take action. We could not take any action on water and sewer utility franchise fees because we don't have an ordinance before us. So I don't know why it's even here, but my motion is to table consideration of it, but we're considering it while arguing the motion. So it's kind of moot.
Might actually, Robert Rule calls a no discussion on the motion to table. It needs a motion and a second and a final vote.
There's a motion and a second.
Which we have.
And we have
I
a
don't
motion.
believe there's any discussion on the motion to table. I mean, we always do it, but.
But that doesn't stop Kim and I from talking to, I mean, we're on CPW's board. That doesn't stop us from talking about this.
It'll probably prevent you from voting on it.
Huh?
It'll probably prevent you from voting on it. You would have a
Yeah,
conflict of
yeah,
interest
I
to vote on.
understand, but we can discuss it. Okay, and then us as town council, what does it do with us?
I don't know what this agenda item means. I don't know what consideration means. It has to be in the form of ordinance. We don't have an ordinance. I move that we table it. It's not supposed to be discussed. We discussed it. I mean, I'm ready to adjourn the meeting.
There's a motion and a second.
Okay, all right, any discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your hand. Vote aye.
Aye. Yes.
Okay. Oh, but educate me on this fancy stuff. All right, public comments not related to this meeting.
All right, for public comment, Linda Wetzel.
Yes, good evening. I've been in Somerville, the city of Somerville, from 1999 to the present time. And it's not good, and it hasn't been good, and I'm tired of it. The police department doesn't function. I've seen so many things. I call them, they don't show up. They try to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. I live in my house, 108 Atlantic Street. 6 o'clock in the morning, or whenever they show up to work, loud music all day long till 9 or 7 o'clock at night. That's not fair. And there is a noise ordinance to keep the noise down. Why, if they're working, all the music playing. The police, when you call them, they don't show up for about 30 minutes or maybe 20 minutes. That's not fair. And when I said to Mr. Jackson about the gunning of the cars from North Main coming to the police department, the guys are gunning the cars down. They don't take care of them. This is another Mayberry RFD department. And Mr. Jackson, I'm so disrespected with the way you said about my ditches. Let me tell you something. Those mosquitoes, I can't go in my backyard. No, wait a minute. This is my time. Mosquitoes at night, you can't go in the daytime. They ate the councilman and the town council, the county council, they were all back there. They were swarmed by mosquitoes. They don't keep the ditches clean. I've called them and tell them, if they cut the grass, come vacuum the grass. They don't do that. And there's a new law that I saw on TV from the Department of Justice that no minority community will have to suffer with all the stuff that 818 has in my backyard. All the stuff about the noise, the dust, the chemicals, every day. When I open my door, my face is all swollen up. When I go in my car in the morning, the mud all over the windshield. I have to wash my windshields off because of the dirty stuff that they do in the daytime and falls on my car in the nighttime. I've had to completely restrain my porch because if you touch it, it tore because of all the chemicals and stuff that's in the community that has whatever the business 818 has off of Central Avenue. And if you stop spending money to the same person every time, the budget would not be the way the man. I'm surprised. I'm agreeing with Mr. McIntosh because you're spending too much money. $111,000 for one truck. $42,000 for lights on a pickleball court. You got people who are hungry, people who can't even, I can't afford to get my place straightened up because the funds are not there. I'm 69 years old now, and I can't afford to get a loan from a bank that I paid 20 years on a house, and they tell me I don't, I'm on credit. I don't have no credit. Where do we get the credit from? Where do you have homeless people in Somerville who don't have food? And I have seen them every day. And we need to get a handle on what's going on in Somerville. You are spending too much money. The whole town is.
Well, I'm sorry you misunderstood.
No, I didn't misunderstand. You've been joking about it ever since you've been on this committee. Everybody has been committed because I'm the only one that comes from Atlantic Street to raise Ken because you won't do your job. All of you, Mr. Brown, the county council, everybody, whether you like it or not, I'm there. And until hell freezes over, you're gonna have to do your job.
I do not have any more public comments.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we go into executive session to receive legal and legal advice and on personnel matters, receive legal advice on matter of Applegate versus Town of Somerville, receive update on personnel matter related to previously discussed South Carolina law enforcement investigation, receive legal advice on rescinding the general bond ordinance passed by council on July 9th, 2020 to allow Somerville CPW to issue water and sewer bonds to fund various projects.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to amend this ordinance to strike item C from our executive session agenda.
I'll second that.
All in favor of this, say aye.
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 It's carried.
Do we need to take a separate vote to go into executive session?
I'll make a motion, we go into executive session.
As amended.
No, okay, as amended.
Second.
This, say aye.
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 Opposed, likewise.